So what's been going on this week? Anybody try anything different? Anybody try the empathetic statements?
Oh, man.
Oh, man. You tried it?
Yeah.
How'd it go?
Would you quit saying, oh, man?
Then it worked.
That's exactly what you
That's right.
My 4-year-old says tartar sauce a lot.
Who does?
My 4-year-old.
Oh, he says tartar sauce
Yeah,
now.
I said tartar sauce.
Oh,
And
okay.
nuts.
Yeah, you understand that and one of the handouts over here has some, the different tools that we're gonna be putting in our parent toolkit by the time we're finished this summer. And the way this works is, as your parent and a situation comes up, you're gonna look through your toolkit and you're gonna find the right tool to use in that situation. And if it doesn't quite work, then you'll put it back and you'll go in for another tool, just like you do if you go out and get a tool to do something around the house. And you got to understand, as you're trying these different experiments, that's all I'm asking you to do with these, is to experiment with them, see which ones work, see which ones don't work, but don't give up the first time. Give it a few times, because what's going to happen, our kids, they're like us in that they like things to be predictable. It's called homeostasis. Even if the predictable is kind of crazy and uncomfortable. You know some people like that, don't you? They thrive on the drama. They thrive on the crises that come to their lives. Well, sometimes our kids get into this routine, we'll go ahead and call it a rut, and they come to understand how we are supposed to react as parents because they've worked really hard to train us. And as soon as we break out of whatever routine we've got, or however we've been trained sometimes, they will try to pull you back. Don't let them pull you back. And that's why I don't like it when you say, oh, man. Keep saying it.
You're gonna tell them Kayla's story.
Well, we haven't talked about that one yet. Yeah. Yeah, Kayla, there's a great story. Well, I'll share some of our experiments and the education that our kids have given us, too, along the way, because we've got some doozies as well, how they have trained us. But yeah, as soon as, when we get to delayed consequences, that's whenever we got one for you for Kayla. Okay, so tonight, I'm going to start off with this question for you. What does the number 148,000 and parenting have in common? Now, if you've heard this question, don't answer, but the rest of you, what does 148,000 and parenting have in common?
The amount of money you're going to spend before they're 18.
The amount of money before they get 18.
I'm gonna say more than that.
That's right.
Now,
That's only if you're cheap.
Yeah.
Anybody else? That's not it.
Jill has the
Jill's got it.
number of times I say no every day.
There you go. Not every day. Now,
Daily.
this is the average number of times that children hear no by the time they reach 18. And here, that's the average. And so that means you really book it on that end on the daily. Some of the rest of you are
Everything.
and then you say no.
Everything.
Maybe I need to go ahead. If we have time tonight, I'll give you the tool on how to win every argument. Would you like a tool to know how to win every single argument? Okay, if we got time,
Is that right?
we will. No. Remember, you have forgotten the rules of love and logic, haven't you? No. Do kids need limits?
Yes.
Do kids need to hear the message no? Yeah, they do. They need, yeah, yes, is this a trick question? Yeah, here, let's go to this one. Do they need to be spanked? Because no, we'll talk about that one in a little bit. And we'll deal with that one before tonight's over with too, a little bit. We'll talk more about it later. But anyway, yeah, they need limits. They need to hear that message no from us. But whenever we're constantly saying no to them, what kinds of messages do our kids hear? If it's always no, 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 no.
Well, just whenever I was getting the kids out of the car and Mason was like trying to fight with me about something, I said, no, no. And he said, I'm trying to tell you something. And I'm like, okay, I probably should not have cut him off, and kept saying no because he was just trying to tell me.
Okay. So it can sometimes lead to that frustration, not only for you, but for kids. And that doesn't help our relationships much at all. What else is no? Saying no, teach our kids. Sometimes it'll teach them to ignore it. Yeah.
That's quite nice.
If you hear it too much, it's just like, oh yeah, they're saying no again.
That's what he's gonna say first, but if I keep on, I can get him yes.
I just got to know how many times he's got to say no before he'll finally say yes. And if he says no, I'll just go to mom. Yeah. No is a good word because no will teach limits. And that's an important lesson to learn. They've got to learn limits. But it also will teach our kids that life is about what they cannot do. And whenever a child learns what they cannot do, first of all, they will try to figure out how to get around what they cannot do. Oh yeah, watch me. So one of the things that Love and Logic attempts to do is to tell our kids no by saying yes to something else. And so the no message is still there, but we're going to try to give them the positive message about this is what life is about. This is what you can do with life. We're not going to dwell on what you can't. Let me give you an example. How many of you, whenever you were growing up, were told no when it came to sex? Yeah, I hope. Go ahead. It's all right. Most parents, as we were growing up, said no. Don't do sex. No, you're not supposed to be doing sex. Now, how many of you, whenever you got married, had a little difficulty transitioning into a sexual relationship? Because what I've learned is it's bad. No. Now, it may not have happened to you. I've talked to several that's exactly their experience. Instead of helping kids understand sex is good, now here's God's plan for it. Not here, but here. It's a different message, and that's similar to what we're talking about here. Not overusing the no. Remember what we talked about last week is we're trying to give our kids as much of a piece of this world as we can while they're in the house, while they're safe, while the cost is still cheap, so that when they get out in the real world, they aren't taken by surprise. They aren't shocked and don't know what to do, paralyzed, because they say, oh, I can do this. I recognize this. We practice it at home. Now, the problem with this, of course, is that life does not have a dress rehearsal. I mean, you don't get to, let's give it a shot first, and then we're going to come and do it the right way. I mean, we got to make it count. Now, that's not to say, don't hear me say, if you've messed it up sometime, then there's no chance. It's over. You might as well give it up. That's not what I'm saying. Every parent's going to blow it. Every parent's going to mess it up. That's all right. We will mention that again tonight too. What it means is we got to try to get it right as much as we can because this is our shot. So as we get into Love and Logic tonight, I want you to remember Proverbs 20 and verse 11. The proverb writer says, even children are known by the way they act, whether their conduct is pure and whether it is right. Let me tell you about, we moved my mom this week, and we had 6 young guys helping us move our mom's furniture. 5 of the 6 were teenagers from around here. They did an incredible job. We could not have had a better crew that was helping us move. Let me tell you, even children are known by the way they act, whether their conduct is pure and whether it's right. Those are some kids that, I mean, they've gotten it right. That's what we want to do with our kids as well. So remember the rules of Love and Logic. This is where we don't give them the left cut, in order to win the argument. First of all, we're going to set firm limits in loving ways without anger, lecture, or threats. Wouldn't it be nice if you didn't have to get angry, you didn't have to give a lecture, you didn't have to threaten them anymore? I won't say that this will completely rid you of that, but it'll help. And then second rule of Love and Logic, when the child causes a problem, the adult hands it back in loving ways. When kids cause a problem, they get to help solve the problem. It's their problem. And so we want to come up with some good techniques and tools that will make sure that they're doing that. So last week we started this idea of these 4 steps of responsibility. What do we want to do? What do we got to do to raise kids who live responsibly as adults, because we got a world full of irresponsible adults out there that have never learned how to be responsible. And so we want to make sure that we're giving our kids a gift, and that is the gift of responsibility. They got to know how to function in this world. And so just to rehash a little bit, recap some of these. Number one, give the child a task he or she can handle. Did you come up with some new tasks this week that you kind of handed off? Maybe just one to a child along the way?
Tried getting to do the same thing we always ask them.
To just do anything, huh?
Clean up after themselves, so.
Yeah. Can we get past this one before we add another one? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sometimes you just got to keep working on the one that you're giving them. Get a task. I mean, you don't learn responsibility unless you have something to be responsible for. Any questions, thoughts, something that came to mind over this past week about this one? Okay, well, we'll go on to the second one. Second one was?
Actually, I have a question.
You have the question. All right, let's go back.
So I told my son this morning to go like clean his playroom, and he normally likes for me to kind of like break down what I think he should do first.
Yeah.
Is that against that, like give him an order of priority, or should I just say, go clean your room and let him figure it out?
Let me ask you. You are a student of your child. You
Right.
need to know your child better than I do.
Okay.
Is he capable of breaking it down and coming up with a way to do it?
Not right now.
Not right now?
Yeah.
Then it's perfectly okay for you to go in there and help him organize and give him some direction.
Okay.
Now, what's not okay for you is go, I see you do it this way, you pull this and you put that up there.
Oh, no, I just pointed at him and said, that's probably the first thing.
Yeah, it's because what you're doing is you're helping doing that training with your child, because one day you're gonna say, hey, we practiced this, I trust you, go in there and do it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite, it's good to, like I said last week, you're gonna give your children tasks that they can handle. What you're not going to do is give them tasks that they can't handle. Because they're gonna make mistakes and they're gonna blow it plenty of times on their own with things they can't handle. They don't need to be set up for failure. Yeah.
Pretty soon in that same scenario, I would ask, what do you think should be cleaned up first?
Yeah.
And they can pick something that you would think should be picked up last, but that's okay, because you're training them to prioritize and then see how it goes.
And if they choose something that should have been last, and it should have been first, and they say, oh man, now you gotta take that off, and you gotta do this.
What if it's not exactly how you want it done? Because I'm a very like neat freak, and like Mason cleaned his room. Everything was put up, and it was put up like off the floor, but it's not where it went. But I was like, it's okay. Like you just have to kind of,
You don't have to sleep.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
Some-
learned to let all the little things kind of go, which was hard for me at first, but.
sometimes you gotta get your OCD and you gotta kind of put it aside,
Mhm.
because there are oftentimes more than one way to get to a spot. And sometimes you gotta let your kids learn a way to get to a spot. Now, later on, there may be opportunities. Hey, have you thought about doing it this way? Or more than likely, if it's not working for them, they may come and say, this isn't working.
Yeah.
Help me.
So we used to have a basket, and anything that was out at night, when I went through the house and ran around, I threw in a basket, and each one of them had their own. And they knew they were responsible for putting that up the next morning. Well, you know, that kind of gets out of hand, and after a few days, I would just go in there and everything that wasn't where it's supposed to be, I made a mountain in the middle of the room and said, you can, and it's done. They used to hate it. But they knew then what had to be put up, because it was in that pile, and if it was in that pile, it had to go somewhere.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Katie still talks about my mountain and how ridiculous it was.
One of the
wasn't
things we
last.
gotta remember is that as parents, our primary job is not to be their best friend. That can come later after they graduate from high school. And it will come later. For most of us,
College,
college,
after college.
You
after
can be
college,
friends- You can be friends after high
After-
school, but you're still stupid.
after they're 40. They'll be best friends after you're 40. No, it's, after they're 40, yeah. No, our job is not to be their best friends. Our job is to be their parents. And sometimes that means they're not gonna like us. But that's okay, they still need us. That's all right. You can not like somebody and love them anyway. You can probably do that with your kids every once in a while. It's where you come up to your kid and says, you know, I love you, but I don't like you very much right now. No, you probably don't want to say that, but.
I don't know if this ties in, but you know, the frustrating thing we have as parents is when, you know, they don't do these tasks, you know, it is frustrating, but we had a instance this weekend, me and Amy were both gone out of town. You know, so we had one child and 3 children were left at home with the 2 older ones, you know, and they did a great job. I mean, they did a great job. Things were put up, they did everything we asked. So what happens Monday? They do a terrible job when we're there. So we get so frustrated when they don't do it when we're around, but when we're not around, they do it. So I don't know if that's you know,
Let me say, you're doing something right.
you're doing something right, but it is frustrating, but you just see that, man, all the
That's because
work.
when
paid
you're
off.
there is when they feel the most comfortable and when they feel like they can let down. And when they're not there, they feel like they have to be on their best and they have to feel like they have to do what you trained them to do.
It's just like your kids are always better at other people's houses than they are at home. I mean, like Youngster told me stories about training that be like, that's not the kid that lives in my house. That's not the one that I bring home.
Yeah, the good news is you've done something right. The bad news is they're not out of the house yet.
They're not gonna show you because they don't want to be more responsible.
That's right. Don't give me another task I can handle. Step number 2, of course, hope the child blows it. This is the one that may be the hardest for some of us. We hate to see our kids fail. Now, one question that I did not ask last week, are we going to allow every mistake happen? What kind of mistake or what kind of blowing it are we not going to allow happen? Harm. Anything that causes irreparable harm. For example, when my kids were small, we got this nice big street out here, 19th Street, and they said, hey, can we go out and play? And say, yeah, we'll get finished talking here in a minute. Well, I'm gonna go out there and play in the middle of that big open area out there. Can I just, I've got lines that go this way, and can I just go play out there? Sure, you'll learn your lesson. No, we're not gonna allow kids to suffer irreparable harm and learn valuable lessons that way. Safety is always first. But there are a whole lot of tasks, a lot of failures that our kids will have that don't do irreparable harm. Some of them we think will, oh, they're just gonna be scarred for life. Their emotional makeup, no, they're big. They can handle it. But yeah, if it's going to cause physical harm, some things, if it's gonna cause bullying, that's a thing that we'll talk about later on as well. I mean, that's one of those things. We'll kind of talk the 2 sides of bullying when we get there. Because there's part of it where, yeah, there's some things they need to handle, but there's some things about bullying the parents need to step in because there's some irreparable harm that can happen there as well. So, safety first. Other than that, we're gonna hope they blow it. You give them a task, you hope they blow it. That way, you know, if they get it right, then you say, hooray, kind of like you were gone and they got it right. Yay, that's a win. If they get it wrong, hey, that's a win. So it's win-win for parents. Any thoughts about, oh, by the way, we don't call them mistakes anymore. Of course, we call them significant learning opportunities. Did your kids have any SLOs this week?
I didn't take advantage, so I'm not gonna call them learning opportunities.
They are significant learning opportunities.
If I take advantage of it, which I did.
Well, as long as you don't go in and clean up their mess for them, it becomes an opportunity for learning. Now, if you're going to go in and you're going to clean up the mess, you're right. They didn't have the opportunity to learn anything. Don't rob your kids of their opportunity to learn. I mean, we get upset with schools if they don't teach our kids. Well, get upset with yourself if you don't give your kids those opportunities to learn something. What that does is that lets a lot of pressure off of you to keep from cleaning up a bunch of their messes. But it also helps you remember these mistakes, and we're going to put mistakes in quotation marks. These mistakes are not fatal. They will grow through them. Thoughts, comments? Because after they have a significant learning opportunity, Then, step number 3, we're gonna let equal parts of empathy and consequence do the teaching. Got a story for you so you can kind of get a lesson about what this looks like. Got to turn this back on because it times out. There we go. The one talking here is Jim Fay. He is one of the originators of the Law and Logic material. He just kind of put the language to it. But understand what empathy and consequence does is you lead with that empathy. That's those empathetic statements. Oh man, what a bummer. What a problem. Rats, tartar sauce. You come up with the one that's you. And as soon as you say that one, because that gets you on the side of your kid that says, I hurt with you. I understand this is going to be hard for you. This is going to be something that's going to be difficult for you. But now we're going to let the consequences from what happened do the teaching. And this is a perfect story about how this particular, it actually wound up being a custodian that in a school that taught this. So let's hope that it works.
Reminds me of the story of Michaela.
Oh,
Michaela was a strong-willed child. But
yeah, we'll hear that one in a minute. We'll hear about Michaela first. Michaela and her permission slip.
reminds me of the story of Michaela. Michaela was a strong-willed child. Anybody here ever see a strong-willed child before? Michaela lived to get into power struggles with her mother because she won every one of them. And then her mother came to work for Cline Institute. And as a result, had to listen to all those tapes and read those books so she could tell people about the contents. And pretty soon she's coming to me and she said, Jim, this stuff was designed for strong-willed children, wasn't it? I said, you got it. She said, it's great. She said, I'm getting good at this stuff. Michaela can't get me into the power struggles anymore. We're really getting along better. And about that time, Michaela went to kindergarten. And she forgot her very first field trip permission slip. And she was in the principal's office. And this principal was trying to decide, was she going to call mother and get verbal permission for Michaela to go anyway, even though she had not been responsible. When in through the door walked one of the teachers to say, uh-oh, Michaela's mother works for Jim Fay. I don't think I would call her if I were you. I think you will get all the support you need to let Michaela live with that bad decision, but you better do it with empathy because mother knows the difference. Now this was very difficult for this principal because she is the one who later admitted that she is in recovery herself. She says she was a recovering helicopter parent. She admits that she is the one who called her husband at the bank, insisted that he leave an important meeting so he could take lunch money over to her son because he'd forgotten his lunch and he was going to be hungry. And after all, he was only 24 years old and it was his first day on the job. Now, can you imagine that it was easy for her to let Michaela live with her bad decision? But the principal finally discovered that she was more afraid of Michaela's mother than she was of her own mother who lived in her head. Now that's a little Freudian, right? She finally got up all of her nerve and she went to Michaela. And she said, oh, Michaela, this is so sad. She said, the trips are always more fun when everybody goes. So look, I'll tell you what we'll do, okay? As soon as we get back, we're going to tell you all about the trip. Now, Michaela was burned. She didn't take that line down. She went home and read off her mother. You get over there and tell them they can't do that to me. And mother had learned what is going to drive that lesson home for Michaela now, anger or sadness. And she did it. She said, oh, Michaela, this is so sad. It must have been an awful day for you. And Michaela said, yes, you better tell him. And then mom said I had to slip away into the bedroom quickly so I could cry. And I cried my eyes out because she said that's the day that I discovered when your kids learn about the real world in real world ways, it hurts the parents 10 times as much as the kids. She said, you know, if anybody had ever told me that years ago, we would have had a whole lot more cold showers at our house and a lot fewer kids. Well, 2 weeks went by, 3 weeks went by, and then we see Michaela coming home from kindergarten once more. She's coming up the front steps. There's a little piece of paper clutched in her hand. She's shoving it to her mother. She says, "Here, sign this. I'm not missing this trip. I'm putting this in my backpack right away. Sign it now." But she said, I had to pry her little fingers off of that. And do you know how hard it is to sign a soggy permission slip? And that kid says, "No, we're not going to let it dry. We're going to sign it now. I'm not missing this trip." Now, who taught Michaela how to do that? Her mother? The teacher? The principal? Michaela, right?
That's how they learn. They go through the mistakes themselves, those significant learning opportunities. And if they suffer the consequences, then they figure out, I don't want to let that happen again. What if the principal said, "Hey, it's all right. We'll take care of it next time. Let me call your mom. Let me go get her to tell us it's okay." What's Michaela going to learn? Yeah. I don't have to keep up with my responsibilities because I just got to cry the right way. I got to have those big puppy dog tears, All I got to do is throw a fit and I'll get my way instead of being responsible for what I've been asked to be responsible for. We talked about Whitley Gillett last week, and I heard that she was told that we talked about Whitley. I mean, not Whitley, about Missy. Let me tell you about Whitley. Whitley, when she went to college over here at LCU, she got her first job, and when she had worked first couple of weeks, she got her first paycheck. Wow, look at that. Well, it was also back in the time, this was before kindergartners had an iPhone. And so Whitley had never had a phone of any kind, a mobile phone of any kind. And so when she went to college, she was able to get her first phone. But what her mother told her was, "That's fine, your dad and I will pay the monthly charge for it. But any minutes in calling or texts over our limit, you get to pay for." Some of you may not remember those days. You actually had to pay, for each one. And so Whitley said, that's fine. I've got my job. I can do it. So she got her phone, she got her job, and she got her first paycheck, and it was great. She thought, man, I am here. I have arrived. I'm ready to face the world. Well, it just so happened the same day she got her first cell phone bill. And all of her extra texts ate up that whole first paycheck. She called Mom. "Mom, can you believe what happened?" You know what Missy did? "Oh man, that stinks to be you." That was her empathetic statement. And Whitley learned a valuable lesson about what you do with the cell phone. Yeah. Wait until the minutes are free. I want you to remember what the Bible says about Jesus. Even though Jesus was God's son, he learned obedience from the things he suffered. It talks about how Jesus learned things through discipline. And so that's the same kind of messages, that's the same kind of lessons that we want our kids to learn as well. All right, so these are the first 3 steps. We talked about those last week. We'll continue to come back to these throughout the whole summer because these provide a foundation for a lot of stuff. Now we're going to go step number 4. And step number 4 is the one where if we're not careful, we're going to short circuit the whole thing. Okay, so we've got given a task that he or she can handle. We've got hoping that the kid blows it. They're going to have those significant learning opportunities. We're going to allow equal parts of empathy and consequence to do the teaching, but then what? So they experience the discomfort. They experience the consequence of not remembering something or not getting a job done or whatever it is. What do we do next as parents? Some of us decide, well, see, I knew you couldn't do it. Now I've got to take it on and I've got to do it myself. Maybe you'll learn one of these days. Yeah, they did. What did they just learn? If I'll just wait long enough, Mom or Dad will take care of this. Step number 4 is you give the same task again. They've had the SLO. They've experienced the empathy. They've experienced the consequence. Guess what? Let's try it again. That's really important because it teaches several things. It tells the kid, you're smart. I know you can learn from your mistakes. I know that you can handle this. It teaches them, I trust you. I trust you to be able to learn from this and get it right. You're capable. Those are the kind of lessons that we want them to learn. Let me ask you, is that the way God parents us? Is our God a God of second chances? Yeah. Remember the story from John 21? Peter has just denied Jesus 3 times. And so Jesus comes, he fixes breakfast on the beach for his disciples, and he pulls Peter aside. And he asks Peter 3 times, do you love me more than these? And then he tells him, feed my lambs, take care of my sheep, feed my sheep. He gives Peter 3 times to acknowledge him, to make up for the 3 times that he denied him. Our God is a God of second chances. So maybe we could be parents of second and third and fourth and however many chances it takes for our kids to learn their significant learning opportunities and get it right. Let me tell you about the rest of the story with Michaela. Oops. Okay. Let's see if we can get it going here.
Well, some little children are still kind of like a little tea kettle that's boiling, and steam is coming out of it, right? If you come up with a hole, the steam comes out somewhere else, right? Didn't take too long before Michaela found another power struggle. A few days later, she's having to struggle over getting up and getting ready to go on time, so Mom said to her, well, now you're old enough to have your own alarm clock, set your own alarm clock, decide how fast to get ready to go to school, I'll have your breakfast there, and you can eat it if you're ready. Well, Michaela had to push the limit and didn't get ready. And it was pretty tough for Mother that day to say, well, on your way, Michaela, don't worry, there's always lunch. And that afternoon, Michaela was home, and the neighbor was giving her a hard time. Said, Michaela, you said you missed your breakfast this morning. She said, yeah, but ate my whole lunch. And Michaela's learning, and they're not fighting nearly so much.
I knew a dad that used to call his daughter every morning to wake her up for her college classes. Every morning on the phone, time to get up, time to get in your classes.
Is he paying for him?
I'm pretty sure he's paying for them too, yeah. You're not going to waste my money. It is sometimes tough to let our kids learn their own lessons. It is tough. It hurts us a whole lot. And the bigger thing is, it's like Grandma here is talking to Billy. She says, if at first you don't succeed, try again. We know the old saying. You know what Billy says back? Sounds time consuming. It is. And that's the problem for us. We've become so busy as parents, we haven't got time for significant learning opportunities. We haven't got time to let them learn through the consequences. We haven't got time to allow them to learn through some of those things. And so we've got to make sure that we give them those opportunities to make those. Let me tell you about the custodian, the lady. Jim Fay was going to this school, and he was going to do a Love and Logic conference or session with the teachers in this school. And he got there a little bit early, and he was visiting with the principal and visiting with some others in the print. But the first thing, he came through the door, and the principal said, you got to help us. You got to help us. We don't know what to do. It's a middle school. And Jim said, sure, I'm here to help however I can. What's the problem? They said, lipstick. He said, lipstick? I said, yeah, lipstick. The teenage girls, they're lipstick. And Jim's going, but they're middle school girls. That's kind of developmentally. A lot of them start wearing them. He said, no, that's not it. They're going to the bathroom and they're putting lipstick on and they're kissing the mirror with it and leaving lipstick marks all over the mirrors. I mean, he says, it's awful. We don't know what to do. Well, Jim said, well, what have you tried to do? He said, well, of course, we had an assembly. We told the kids, don't do this. How well do you think that worked? It didn't work a bit. Then he said, then we decided that we gave teachers a lecture to give the kids in the classrooms. And so they let the kids know this is not appropriate. This is not going to happen. Do not put lipstick on the mirrors. That didn't go anywhere either. So then he said, then we decided to get some informants out there, you know, little snitches. They'd be out like hall bathroom monitors. And if they found a girl putting lipstick on the mirror, you know, they'd turn their name in. Well, none of them wanted to turn their friends in or anybody else in. They'd get them. And so that didn't work. And so we tried a few more lectures and threats about it, and that didn't seem to do it either. And so what do we do? And Jim's saying, well, you've pretty much tried everything I was going to tell you to do. And about that time, one of the custodial ladies came walking by, and she'd only been there for a week. And she came walking by and she said, wait, did I hear you say something about the lipstick on the mirrors? And they said, well, yeah, we did. She said, I'll take care of it. And Jim Fay was there, and he was thinking, wait a minute, I'm the parenting expert here. I'm the teaching expert. What do you mean? You've only been there a week. What do you mean you're going to fix it? Yeah. She said, when's the first passing period? Jim says, you don't even know when the first passing period is. How are you going to fix this? She said, I'll take care of it. So here are the girls. They come into the bathroom during the passing period. They're all in there. They got their lipstick on, you know, looking in the mirrors. Well, here comes the custodial lady. And she's got two things. She's got a mop and she's got a squeegee. She walks in very dramatically. She opens up one of the stall room doors. She gets the mop. She dunks it down in the toilet really good. She drags it wet across the floor, puts it up on the mirror, clears it off like that. She gets the squeegee and starts squeegeeing it all down. And the girls are going, well, what are you doing? What are you doing? She says, well, I clean the bathroom mirrors like this all the time. And after 2 or 3 of them threw up, then they all left. They did not have any problem with lipstick on the mirrors the rest of the year. If they see the consequences, they can learn something about it, the significant learning opportunities. All right, so let me give you 2 techniques to use this week. The first one is if you want to win every argument. Who wants to argue with me? Anyone? JJ, you want to argue with me? All right, JJ. How old is JJ going to be?
7.
7? All right, JJ, you're going to be 7 years old. What's going to be the battle?
Breakfast in bed.
Breakfast in bed. All right, JJ wants breakfast in bed as a 7-year-old. All right, JJ.
JJ's high class.
JJ. He is. All right, JJ, you're the 7-year-old, and you just asked me, Dad, can I do breakfast in bed? Now, I'm going to give you my answer, and that's your job to argue. You got it? Okay. JJ, I know breakfast in bed would be wonderful, but no, we're not going to do that. Sorry, JJ. You're going to have to get up and get your own breakfast before you go to school.
Oh, man. My friend's dad makes it for him.
JJ, I love you too much to argue.
No, man, I want some breakfast in bed.
JJ, I love you too much to argue, man.
How about this? I'll do more chores if you just make
JJ,
some breakfast.
JJ, listen to me. I love you too much to argue.
I hear you. I love you too, Pops. If you really
Sure.
love me, you hook me up with some breakfast in bed.
JJ, really, I love you too much to argue.
Do I stop now or do I keep going?
When a kid wants to drag you into an argument, here's an important love and logic principle. There is not anything in your house that an argument won't make worse. If you want to make something worse, go ahead and get in the argument. So what you do is when your kid wants you to start getting into that argument, remember it takes 2 of you, and I will guarantee you that if you get into an argument, you're going to be doing more thinking than the kid's going to be doing. Because it takes you a while to come up with all the reasons why we're not going to do it this way, and all they got to do is keep saying, no, but I want this, no, I want this. They don't do any thinking. And so if a kid starts bringing you into one of those arguments, then the first step as a parent is to go brain dead. And some of us are better at that than others, but you're just going to go brain dead. And then you're going to use one-liner, just one line. I love you too much to argue. I love you too much to argue. Just smile. I love you too much to argue. How long will a kid go? Now, there are some kids out there, they are persistent, and they will keep going. But after usually about 5 or 6, I love you too much to argue, you're crazy. Now, if after 5 or 6 times, I love you too much to argue, and they're still going, it's okay to say, hey, I love you too much to argue, walk the other direction. It's all right.
Is there a line and we can do it over and under on it?
Over and under? What do you mean?
Place bets.
Place.
Say the line is 6, and then if you want to take the over on my kid, I'll report back next week.
Yeah, please do. Yeah. We'll take a class pool in here. How long do you think it's gonna take?
Do that, probably work on adults too.
I can't count
I was
that.
like,
Well, you don't have to count that high. You just have to keep saying.
I can't count that high. The prettiest numbers. I can't count that high.
You just keep saying, I love you too much to argue. I love you. And when you get tired of that,
But if you stay there forever though, Jill, and
Yeah.
I like it too much to argue, you argue by doing that. So you have to leave. You have
Yeah.
to physically leave. We had this on the way home from their high school, actually. And I love you too much to argue. I couldn't start in the car, but I just kept saying, we're not gonna argue about it. And then after that, it was just drop it, drop it. And I finally just quit saying anything. He argued the rest of the way home with himself.
and that's okay.
Drove me nuts. Leave it like this.
What will happen is the kid is gonna still want to argue, even if you do leave and they argue with themselves. The key is you're not arguing. They can argue all they want to. You're not the one arguing. Does it work with adults? Yes, it does. But you gotta be careful if you try it with your spouse. It doesn't work as well on your spouse if they know love and logic. If they don't love and logic, it may work. It'll work on your boss. I wouldn't say I love you too much to argue. You might say I respect you too much to argue with you. But it will work on adults too. But yeah, the important thing is you're not going to stand there and argue with them. You're going to turn and go. Now, there is another thing you can say if you get to the point where, you know, if this is something that really needs to be talked about, because there are some things that kids want to argue about and they need to be talked about. Then you could say something like, I'll tell you what, as soon as your voice is as calm as mine, then I'll be happy to talk with you about this, but not right now, because I love you too much to argue. Later, when you're calm and when the kid is calm, you can come back and you can talk about whatever it is that needed to be talked about. Now, if they start arguing again, what are you going to do? Start it over, yeah. I love you too much to argue. Oh man, I wanted to talk about this with you so bad, but hey, as soon as you can talk about it with soft, as calm a voice as I'm talking now, we can do that and walk away. Now, it only works if you say, we'll talk about this whenever your voice is as calm as mine. If you say it this way, we'll talk about this when your voice is as calm as mine. All bets are off. Yeah, that doesn't work. Love you too much, Jordan.
And sometimes they'll come right back and say, okay, my voice is calm now. And you still have to say, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it later because I'm not calm anymore. We'll come back and do it. And that's okay. Be honest with your kids. I'm not calm anymore. I'll be happy to talk about this whenever I'm calm. Because I don't want to do anything that's going to hurt you or me. And you walk away. Give it a shot. Experiment with it. That's all I'm asking for, just an experiment. Most of you are going to get a chance before the night is over to try. I love you too much to argue. Oh, I love you too much to argue. That's one technique. We'll come back to it. Let me know how it goes next week. Any other questions about that one?
I'm thinking about, I mean, my 2-year-old is like a 16-year-old already, I don't know.
She's
but
sassy.
She is, and
A
I'm trying
sassy
to think
2-year-old.
about like, I've used this in a kind of a different scenario, like when you stop crying, we can go from there, but she will just like, and I try to walk away, but she just follows me screaming.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where you go to very young kids and their SLOs. How soon can a child have an SLO? Well, how old do they have to be? What Cline and Fay say is as soon as the kid knows how to spit the beats, they can learn SLOs. When a kid knows how to spit the beats, they can have an SLO. Because what is usually when they start spitting the beats, they know they get you. Stop it, stop it. They know they can get a reaction out. See, young kids, they start out really young and it's really frustrating for them because they realize they're the smallest thing in the house and they can't do anything. I mean, until they figure out that they can control the loudness of mom's voice. And they can control the color of dad's face. And you know those little veins that sometimes pop out in the neck? It's so much fun to watch those veins pop out whenever they irritate. They don't know they're doing it, but they know actions that will get them there. And so with the very little ones, they can figure that out pretty quickly. And so with young ones and SLOs, there's really about 3 options. One is you change the child's location, you change the offending object's location, and sometimes you have to change the parent's location. And like you said, if you walk and then they kind of following you, you're still changing your location. Now, what you can try, especially with young kids, and it will work with older kids, you just kind of have to change the language a little bit. But it's what's known as the uh-oh song. It's very similar to what's been known as timeout, but it's not timeout. Timeout tends to be punitive. That's where you did something wrong, now you got to be punished. You're going to sit there and think about what you just did. All right? And if you say that to a child, what they're going to do is sit there and they're going to show you that they're not thinking about what they just did. What the uh-oh song does is it says, well, here it's a song. It goes something like this. Uh-oh, little bedroom time coming on here. This is so sad. Come back and you can be sweet. All right? Let's try it together. Oh, gosh. Here we go. Uh-oh, little bedroom time here. This is so sad. Come back when you can be sweet. Yeah, I know that was a lot to have to say. Here, try it one more time. Uh-oh, little bedroom time here. This is so sad. Come back when you can be sweet. Bedroom time. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take the child and you're going to drop them off in the bedroom, and then they get to stay until when? Until they can be sweet. That's the important thing. Now, what are a lot of kids going to do? Here they go. What does parent do? Uh-oh, little bedroom time. You know, this is so sad. I want you back with me whenever you can be sweet. Now, for sometimes parents can do that, and it's kind of like whenever we're trying to potty train our dog, you know, house train them. You know, you can keep going back and forth and back and forth. And finally, the kid will figure out, okay, that'll sometimes work. Sometimes parents may have to, you know, close the door. But you might give the kid a piece of the action first. Okay, would you rather sit in there with the door open or the door shut? Let them help decide. Door open, door shut. Now, you close the door, you're going to stand there and just go, you know, hold on to the door while they're finally moving back? No, you're not going to do that. Some parents will actually put the lock on the door. Now that really, some parents don't like that. It has all sorts of mommy dearest kind of connotations to it, and they don't want to do that. But when it comes time to an uh-oh deal, I mean, what you're not going to do is you're not going to lock them in there and then go down shopping down at Walmart for a couple hours and think, hey, are you sweet yet? No, you're going to stay right there to know that they're safe, right? You're not going to let anything get out of hand. But after a while, they'll figure out, uh-oh, little bedroom time here. You come back whenever you're sweet. After a while, they'll figure out they can do that with the door open. Now, what are you going to do while they're in there? You might go and turn on their favorite TV program. Oh, look at that, it's so funny, you know. You want to make it uncomfortable for them. But what kids oftentimes need during those times, especially the older they get, is they need a little recovery time. That's really what's called. They need some time to be able to regroup. That's that come back when you're sweet. And if you,
your pre-adolescents lock themselves in their room all the time.
that's
Where
true.
you put them instead.
Do what?
You're gonna do this with your pre-adolescent kids, where you put them instead of their room, because mine is just assume you locked in his room.
Okay, it's kind of like this one right here. Mom says, and until you learn to behave, young man, you are to stay out of your room. Stay out? Yeah, because that's where all the fun stuff is. All right, reverse it. Uh-oh, this is a little bit of out of the room time. You can go back in when you can be sweet. There may be some of that you'll have to do, but understand this is not to be punitive. Sometimes the kid just needs to get away and regroup so they can be sweet. That does not mean you have to start taking things away from it. It just means that you're going to separate yourself from your child because you're not being sweet right now. Now, when your child is sweet and ready to come back, what are you gonna do then? Some parents will actually set a timer. And the younger the child, the shorter the timer. Usually it's about 1 minute for every the age of the child. And ding, then they come back. Now, what happens if you set the timer and they go, but I want to come out now? Uh-oh, a little bedroom time. Let's try it again when you can be sweet. They'll figure that one out eventually. Now, they've been sweet. You put 4 minutes on the timer, it goes ding, they come out. What are you going to do? I hope you learned your lesson, young man. Now, what happens whenever you tell your kid, hope you learned your lesson?
They don't know what happened in the beginning.
Well, and some kids will say that, but what did I do? And that's where you might say something like, oh, this is so sad. I tell you what, if you don't figure it out by tomorrow, come back and ask me and we'll talk about it tomorrow. You got to start trusting your kid that they're going to learn from those consequences. What you don't do is say, I hope you learned your lesson, because then most of our kids will then say, well, I'll show you that I didn't learn my lesson. No, remember, you come back whenever you're sweet. When they come back and they're sweet, give them a big hug. Oh, I'm so glad you're back with me. Let's have fun together again. Or let's have that discussion that we were going to have, or whatever it is that was going on before they stop being sweet. So that they start learning that the consequence of being sweet is, hey, things are good around here. But as soon as I stop being sweet, uh-oh. Now, here's the thing. Angela did this with her school a lot. They had this system where you put, they had this board up there where you change colors. You know, if you get it goes from green to yellow after the first warning, and then to red. And if you got past red, then you go down to the principal's office. And so she used the empathetic statement, uh-oh, we got to go change your star. Well, by the middle of the year, all she had to do was say, uh-oh, and the kids looked up and looked around, and the one who was guilty changed the star. They knew. What you want to start with is the uh-oh, because what you want to do is to kick in this little gear in their child's brain that every time they hear the word uh-oh, something happened, something significant, some significant learning is about to take place. So, a couple of techniques. Teenagers, it does work for teenagers. It's just you have to change it a little bit instead of uh-oh. It's more like, you know, I'd really like to talk about this right now, but when you're calm, I'll be glad to do that. It's that argument kind of thing. And I'd love to talk to you about it. It's not the bedroom. You're not going to send them off to their bedroom. That's where they want to be anyway. But they're going to need you. They're going to need you for something. You say, you know, I'll be happy to do what you need me to do. I'll be happy to help you with this. But I'm not going to help you until you can be sweet. I love you too much to argue. That's kind of the uh-oh for older kids. So, this week, what I want you to do, I'll tell you about Charlie next week. But give it a try this week. Follow the steps for building responsibility in your child. Turn mistakes into SLOs. Give them a chance to do that. Make those empathetic responses to problems. We'll talk more about that later, especially those that just don't feel empathetic in a moment. And we can talk about that later. Try the uh-oh song or a version of it somewhere. Come back with some of your experiments and let's talk about it and problem solve from here. All right? Enjoy your parenting. It's supposed to be fun.